Hey, what's up, guys? I hope you're enjoying the Be the Difference podcast. If you are, I got a huge favor to ask. Go on to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review for us. It helps us immensely with algorithms and growth because we grow completely by word of mouth, organically. That's why there are no ads. Also, feel free to share this content with somebody you think might get value out of it. Last, if you don't know, I also do coaching to help people become the best version of themselves, starting with physical fitness, going all the way through mindset, sales, and leadership. If you're interested in learning more, there's going to be a link in the description of the podcast. You can schedule a time. It's a free assessment. All I'm going to do is have a conversation with you and see if I can even help you. I look forward to speaking to all of you. Continue to enjoy the podcast, and remember to always be the difference. What's up, everybody? It's Greg Birch with Delta Financial, and this is the Be the Difference podcast. This podcast is all about making you a better person in your life and in your business with coaching on sales, leadership, mindset, marketing, everything under the sun when it comes to being an entrepreneur, and we bring on guest speakers. Today, I've got the honor and pleasure of welcoming Mr. Mike Ficara. Mike, how are you, sir?
Greg, I could not be better, man. And thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm excited to dig into this.
I'm excited to dig into this. I think this is going to be a really good show. We were just talking before we started. It's going to be one of the days.
It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday when we're recording. This feels like Friday, but we'll be good. We'll be good.
So. This is going to be good. So for those of you that don't know Mike, right, you're about to find out who he is. Mike Ficara is a seasoned entrepreneur and consultant. His core focus is on the growth and scaling strategies for businesses of any size. His expertise in personal brand building and social media strategy is unmatched. Mike has had the opportunity to work in a variety of industries over his career, going from the classroom to the boardroom. This vast experience provided insight into how people learn, leadership, and most importantly, what motivates people to succeed. Through this, he has taken existing businesses and allowed them to see massive growth and stability through a variety of techniques, consulting for small and large companies such as NEC, Nestle, Brand Ethos, and Top Score Writing, among others. Mike is the author of Like Socks on a Rooster and hosts the Start Down podcast and also 3 Points podcast with his son, Anthony. Fun facts, his favorite font is Times New Roman. It's great font. I can't complain.
Thank you.
He enjoys rare steak, black coffee, scotch, and a good cigar, sometimes all at once. I would agree to all those too. Nice. His name is misspelled in his high school yearbook, and he once told Tim's story a story.
That's right. All true things. So it's been a good show. I appreciate you having me on. That about sums it up.
And wrap. So Mike, let's dig in, bro. Let's start with young Mike. Where did this all start? Right? How did you get to now?
Yeah, young Mike is such a great part of my story, and I love sharing it. Not because it's my story, but because I wish in some ways you always say you wish you would have heard your story when you were younger. Yeah. And I was one of those kids, and nowadays it's the typical entrepreneur story, but back then it wasn't. It was the typical loser story, right? Mm-hmm. There's a chapter in my book, Like Socks on a Rooster, called I Failed First Grade, which is very true. I was held back in first grade. My mom said it was a growing year, but at 5'5", it didn't work. So I always kid around with her about that, but we're Italian, so we were bred short. But I never was a good student growing up, never. And that's why I put the thing about my name being misspelled in my high school yearbook, from elementary school all the way up through high school. And this is in the 90s. I was just never a good student. I graduated in 1999. So right at that turn of the century mark, when the internet was young, when things were being born. So we didn't have all the cool stuff we have nowadays. So it was either like you did good in school and got a good job, or like you didn't, right? Like those were kind of the options back then. And I remember struggling a lot with that. And it wasn't until I kind of failed out of college and was working in a restaurant, was waiting tables, which I think is a job everybody should do at some point in their life because it's so much. Working in a restaurant is just, you want to be an entrepreneur. I think before you be an entrepreneur, you should do two things: have someone punch you in the face, and then also go work in a restaurant for 6 months, just because.
Also fair.
Yes. That's what it is. But if you can do that and love it, and I'll never forget, I interviewed for a job at the Cheesecake Factory, and Cheesecake Factory, really, you had to work at a restaurant for a certain period of time. I didn't meet any of the criteria. So the manager sat down and he's like, you don't meet any of the criteria. Why should I hire you? And I gave him a very simple answer. I said, listen, I'm Italian. I said, the joy I get out of watching people eat food that they love, I said, it just makes me happy to do that. He's like, you're hired. So that was one of my first forays into like passion over profit, if you will.
Yeah.
And, you know, while I was waiting tables there, one of my former teachers came in and asked me if I wanted to substitute teach. And like I said, also being a little bit lazy, I was like, oh, that sounds like an easy job. Fell in love with education. Ended up teaching for the better part of a decade, once again, in that early 2000 period, about 2002 to 2012, and learned a lot. I mean, this is when podcasting, Twitter, the internet was kind of just coming up, incorporated a lot of that into my classroom. And then ironically, when I got my master's degree in educational technology, which for the first time ever, I think I got all A's and B's in school. And then went on to unknowingly work for a startup. That startup got invested in from a guy by the name of Wayne Huizinga, which if you don't know who Wayne is, he's the guy that grew Blockbuster Video. He sold it before everybody does that cheesy Netflix thing they do on the internet now. And I was promised everything under the sun: stock options, equity, my own private plane. I got none of that. I did, however, get to fly on Wayne's private 747 jet, which is pretty cool. Watch games in the Dolphins owner box. So I got a taste of that billionaire lifestyle, if you will.
Yeah.
And didn't fall in love with the lifestyle as much as I learned a lot. And when that ended, I was like, wait a second, I could either go back to the classroom or help other businesses. So really, I've spent the second half of my career, almost 10 years now, helping small to medium-sized businesses, just like you kind of read in my bio, grow and scale. We focus on 3 areas: marketing, sales, and implementation, because no business is ever doing all 3 of those right. And I've been doing that. Every industry, you name it, I kid around and say I haven't decided what I want to be when I grow up yet, because all my clients are in, I've got clients in the education space. I've got clients in the cigar industry. I've got clients in telemarketing, oil and gas. I mean, you name it, I've worked with or are currently working with almost, multiple verticals. So no 2 days are the same. I love it. And that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Oh, wow. That was the best 30-second rundown of I like it. I
got 4 kids too, so I always got to do everything quick. There's no
4 kids?
I got 4 kids that I know of. Yes. So I have from 15 to 5. Literally, so I got 15, 12, 6, and 5. All one wife. I said, I didn't get the fun of having it with 2 wives. Usually when you got a gap, that's what happens. But one great woman I've been married to. We made the cardinal sin of saying we were done. But nothing better than being a father of 4.
How many boys? How many girls?
3 boys, and the girl is the youngest.
I got 2 boys, 2 girls. Nice. 17 to 8.
Oh, so my
8-year-old turns 9 in March.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, my daughter just turned 5 last week, so just turned 5.
Oh, we're going to happy belated.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
So basically, I've just found out that Mike and I are brothers from another mother. We have so much in common.
Isn't it amazing though? Like we don't have, and right, like growing up, right? We never had this. Like, how awesome is it that we have these communities now that we can tap into, where it's like, wait, no, you're not alone. And that, I think that's all you need to know sometimes, right? Is that you're not the outcast. Like I watched my sister was fucking brilliant when I was a kid, so like she was gifted, always did well. So it's like, why aren't you as smart as your sister? Type thing growing up. So it's great. It's great to have these networks step into. I love it.
It really is. And like, just being able to, I'm telling you, like in the last 2 weeks, right? I've been recording massively with a bunch of guests, and I've learned so much, and it's connected with so many people. And it's like just spreading out this network, right? But it's been fantastic to see like all these different people in different industries and that are all kind of just doing the same thing. They're all just trying to make an impact on the world, right? And like spread some good news. So it's been fantastic. Well, I want to break down some funny things that some things I think is going to be comical. Let's talk about being a waiter. And like the things that you can learn from being a good server, waiter, wait staff in any restaurant, right?
So yeah, I mean, so let's start with the obvious, right? Getting paid nothing. That's number one, right? You walk in, you gotta sing for your supper, right? And it amazes me that these major corporations could still do. I don't know what it's like now, to be honest with you, because I haven't applied for a waiter job in over 15 years. But you worked for, what was it, $2.15 an hour, I think, to start as a waiter. And then you work
it's like $2 an hour, something like that.
You work for your tips, right? So like that first of all is, and everybody works the same. What I loved about it, everybody works the same, 8 hours. It was really 12 hours usually by the time it was all done and you did your side work. But the thing I loved about it is everybody left making different amounts of money. It didn't matter what section you're in or where you were at. It was really how you did your job. And that was always fascinating to me. But then the massive level of teamwork. And what I loved about a restaurant was, it was like, and I live in Florida. So if you ever experienced a hurricane, you know this, right? Like right before a hurricane, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's calm. It's nice. It's almost like, are you sure something bad's about to happen? And that's what like working in a restaurant is. It's calm. It's nice when you get there. It's quiet. And then when the rushes come where you got to make money, it's like boom, 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 boom. Things are happening. And I know that pressure taught me a lot, right? It taught me like how to adapt to that. And you had to learn also too how to come down from the high, because at the end of the night, when you out there and listen, in the restaurant industry, anyone who's worked in there knows a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol, a lot of sex, you name it, a lot of that stuff goes on there. And I think it's just those things are, you saw people that got polluted into that and it became like the career of what they were. And you see people that were in there to get in and out of it. Right. And they just knew it was kind of the stepping stone to where they needed to go. So I learned a lot from it, and you usually have multiple managers. So I learned a lot of different leadership styles. You know, there was everybody had to run the same shifts, but some people did it as a dictator. You know, some people did it as a dick. So some people were nice. You know, it depended on what they were. But I remember as a young man learning so much about that and learning about just the different ways people led and different ways people work. You know, it was a fascinating experience.
I agree in terms of the environment, right? If anyone's ever seen the movie Waiting,
yes,
pretty accurate.
Yes,
it's pretty accurate what it's like to work.
And talk about who's in that movie, right? I remember when that came out. Like those guys were nobodies. Like
they were nobodies, right?
Like Dane Cook. I mean, you had what's his name? The Deadpool guy was in it.
Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds. Those from Entourage is in there. Yeah, like all these awesome people, man. It was a cool movie for sure.
It's very accurate in terms of like how that world was and how life was, and you know what it taught me? To step outside of myself and to get comfortable talking to strangers, to get comfortable upselling. Because I always knew, like, if I could get them to buy, I worked at Ruby Tuesday. If I could get them to buy and add a salad bar to their steak or their burger, that's just going to increase my tip because of the percentage across the board, right?
Yep.
So, and it's just like, dude, you can get some food right now. Let's go get a salad bar, bro.
Yeah.
Like they're like, I'll go to that too.
Yeah,
because it doesn't seem like a lot, but then all those little tiny things add up. And so at first, when I first tried to do it, it was terrible. Like, and they're just like, no, I don't want salad. And I was like, yeah, me neither. I hate salad. Stupid salad bar.
Yeah.
and then over time, I got used to kind of learning and listening, and I got really good where I could just like take an order because I knew the menu so well, and I found little ways to be impressive. Very similar to waiting, but I found ways to be impressive to the client, the customer, to be funny, to let my personality show, to make them laugh, right? To get them kind of like, especially if they were, man, I used to love Sunday crowds because they were like the worst. And it was always those people that are like super stringent with their money, right?
Yeah.
And I loved them because I loved, they would come in, they would be very like, we're going like this and just like, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would come in and I would completely find ways to like melt them. And then they would be like, hey, we want Greg. Every single week, we want Greg. We want Greg. And I would have like a constant flow of returning customers that wanted to pick my section. Right. And that's like having return clients. But it teaches you these skills in order to like connect with people on a different level. Right.
Yeah.
And so I never thought about it till you just mentioned it. So it's very profound.
I love that.
That you're like, I think that every entrepreneur should. And that's actually a really good marker. I didn't even realize, like I did that in college. It was a stepping stone for me before I went in the military. I just needed to get money. I just needed to work to get money.
Yep.
So, but yeah, there's some nights like, man, you'd make, which back then, this is back in early 2000s, like 2002. If I made $300 in a night, I was fucking rich.
No, that was huge. That was huge. But you had to go home because if not, that money could disappear real quick. Because I worked at Chili's one time right next to a Hooters, and it was like Chili's closed, and everybody went over to Hooters, and they spent more of it than they made. You know.
Yep. And so I was really like, I would have like a $300 night, and I'm like, I'm rich. I'm rich. Like just.
Yep.
301s, this big old wad of cash.
Yeah. You walk out, you thought you were balling, man. I had a drawer. I remember I had a drawer just full of cash, of cash. You know?
Man, those were the days, bro. It's been a while since I thought about that. And then getting punched in the face, dude. That's so true because you have to realize like being an entrepreneur is intentionally putting yourself in a position where you're going to fail, and
Yeah.
it's going to be painful, and
Yeah.
you just have to not make the same mistake twice.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
Kind of.
yes and no. You have to be okay making the same mistake twice. I think that
Yeah.
the hard thing for me is personally, and even in a lot of businesses that I've seen people work with, is you almost have to be willing to get punched in the face, right? Like you have to know how to take a punch, right? You almost got to be a
Almost
boxer.
like a masochist.
Yeah, yeah. But like
Typically.
in a good way. And you know, it's funny because I hear a lot of entrepreneurs talk about, which just boggles my mind. When entrepreneurs get online, this is how you know someone's never had a business. Oh, having a job's the worst thing. There's no wealth if you have a job. Oh, listen, I've been to plenty of people that have really nice homes, really nice car, really nice houses,
Yeah.
and they work for a major corporation. You know, so let's not kid ourselves here. First of all, with that. Second of all, I also know a lot of people that have a job that maybe have a moderate house, moderate car, but they're happy as could be. Right? Gary Vee talks about that all the time.
Yeah.
You gotta, a lot of people say, oh, being an entrepreneur means you hate having a job. But if you're a really good entrepreneur, you're giving a lot of people a job.
Yes.
So you got to know how to love being an entrepreneur, but you also got to know how to love hiring other people, giving them a job and paying them money, and being okay with them working 9 to 5. Because, and the reason why I say the punching in the face thing is you're willing to fight for everything you do, but not everybody in your company is always going to be that way. So
Yeah.
you also have to have the ability to be able to, okay, I'm going to take the losses on the chin, right? Because some people will take the losses and be like, it's not that big of a deal. It's like, but you got to be willing to step in and fight for things sometimes. You got to be willing to get in there and kind of scrap it out. And more importantly, just when you think things are good, I see Tom Hanks, it's been floating around the internet where he talks about something like, I wish somebody told me that, when things were bad, this too shall pass. But then he says, I wish someone also told me when things are good, this too shall pass. So it's being able to live in both those worlds, I think, is really the key.
Yeah. There's another one that's along the same lines, but it's pretty profound as well, is that as an entrepreneur, a lot of people wait until like the right season, like the perfect times, like, oh, I'm waiting for the market. Okay, it doesn't exist, A. But B, if you can start as an entrepreneur when like everything's fucking terrible and like the shitstorm's going on and you can find success, that right there will prepare you the most, because then you'll know, like, when things are going great, you're going to be way better than your competition, but then you're also prepared for when it goes bad again, because you've already been through those tough times. You started during those tough times whenever you had less momentum. Right now you've got momentum, and it's just the concept of you're going to have good times and you're going to have bad times. Like the market's going to have good times and bad times, and it's going to have an effect on your business. There's going to be times when you're having like any number of things in your business, whether it's like leadership issues, whether it's personnel issues, whether it's competition, your competition coming in and trying to impose some stuff, or to make an effect on your business. Like the list goes on, right? The amount of challenges and hard times that you can encounter. But if you can find the perseverance, the discipline, the grit really within you to start during those difficult times, dude, you're already ready for the roller coaster.
Yeah. And it goes back to like what you said about waiting tables, right? You had those $300 nights, but you can't live like every night's a $300 night. So you got to live not like it's a $60 night, but at least live like it's a $100 night, right? And that's how too many people though, either, and it's funny, I've seen a lot of people get comfortable in the $60 nights, and they adapt to the failure, if you will, and they adapt to the average. And I've seen a lot of people live like they have $300 nights every night, and they don't, and then they wonder why they crash and burn, So if you could learn to live in that middle gray area and still stay hungry, I mean, that's key. Like you said, I think the hunger is key. And you also have to know when I don't want to say when you're done growing, but when you're content with where you are. Yeah. Because I think there has to be coasting points, right? Like it's like when you go on a road trip, right? You can't drive slow all the time. You can't gun it, but that point where you hit cruise control is sometimes the nicest part of the drive, because you get to sit back, enjoy, and look at it. I think as entrepreneurs, it's really important to know when you can hit cruise control, but know when you can turn it off, because that, if you don't do that too, you're going to burn out. I know so many people, it's grind. You get, and you know how it is, especially with 4 kids, right? Like you got to turn off sometimes, but I think too, and everyone says, oh, how do you do it with 4 kids? I said, well, first of all, I didn't plan any of this, so that's how you do it. I said, and secondly, you just enjoy the ride though. There's never a good time to have kids. There's never a good time to start a business. There's never a good time to buy a house. There's never a good time to get married. There isn't, but yet we've been doing it for thousands of years. So what makes you think you're going to be any different? in that you're going to find the right time to do it. You got to just do it sometimes, you know?
Just jump, dude. Entrepreneurship is jumping off of a cliff and making your parachute on the way down.
Yeah.
It's just like, fuck it, let's go.
Yeah.
Like,
It
that's
really
it.
is.
That's it.
It really is. Or outsource it and have someone do the parachute for you.
So I want to be like, hey man, hey, how did you do it with 4 kids? But I just fucking happened. My youngest. Okay, I've never talked about this ever on a podcast.
Oh, I love it.
Grayson, I love you, buddy. You're the best. He's a funny kid.
That's awesome.
He's really damn funny. He's out of all my kids, he's probably the funniest, and he's the youngest. He's got this ridiculous confidence that just doesn't even make sense. Like he's like
real like bad. My Giovanni is mine the same way. Youngest boy, same way.
Just real overly confident. Anywho, when he was when before he was born, you know, at the time I was married, and my wife was my ex-wife, my wife at the time. She really wanted to have another kid, but at the time we had 2 girls, 1 boy, and I was like, man, I only wanted a boy and a girl. That was it. And like, I've got 2 girls, I got a boy, we got a great dynamic, we're good, right?
Yeah.
She's like, I really want another one. I was like, nah, we're good. Let's not disrupt this.
Yeah,
you know,
don't shake the
don't shake the tree. The tree's growing. So she ended up like she did get pregnant, right? And so one day I get home from work. I'm in the military, by the way. So I get home from work, and I was big into drinking. I was a big Jack Daniels fan, right? I was like, I drink like a handle. I'd be like, I go like a handle of Jack in a week, like because I come home and just start pouring some Jacks and just have Jacks with dinner and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Every single night. And she was like, hey, I got a surprise for you. She was like, it's on the counter in the kitchen. And I was like,
oh boy.
I was like, man, she got another handle of Jack. I just ran it out the other day.
Yeah.
I go in there and I'm looking around. I don't see anything. I'm like, where? I was like, where's the Jack at?
Yeah, look it up. Yeah.
She was like, there's no Jack. And I looked down and it was a friggin' pregnancy test.
Oh my gosh.
That was on. And I was like, first thought was like, that's disgusting. I hope you watch that thing.
Yeah.
Second thing, I just responded was like, fuck. And I was like, no, not another one.
Yeah.
You know, because I was like, no, man. I mean, I'm completely happy.
Oh yeah,
I love you, Grayson. Like you weren't a mistake, buddy, but like completely unplanned. But it's just kind of like you were saying is you don't really plan for it; it happens, and then you just make the best of it.
Yeah,
you know, you do the best that you can.
Yeah, you enjoy that. I remember too because when we had our, we had the 2, and we said that we were done. We had 2 boys. We said we were done, and then found out my wife was pregnant with the 3rd. We were living in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house at the time. So I was like, all right. So Gio was born. House started to get a little tight. I said, all right. So we just started looking at houses. We didn't, and we got so lucky. I mean, we were truly blessed. We didn't even think we could afford the house we're in now. And everything just lined up, right? Like we sold our house for more than we should have. We got a really good deal on the house we moved into. But I really made sure that I only got a 4-bedroom, 3.5-bath house, so I couldn't have another kid. And sure enough, not even 2.5 months we're in the house. We moved in May. We found out my wife was pregnant in July. It was like, damn. Like, so we're already out of bedrooms in the new house, but like, and I was like, oh great, here we go again. But we made do, right? Like the kids, like, the 2 youngest ones shared a room. Like we got a loft. Like everybody just kind of like gets in where they fit in. Like we didn't make a big deal about it, right? So it's like you could be like, oh no, like what are they gonna do? Like what if each kid doesn't have their own space? What if they need this? What if they need that? And it's just the adaptivity of kids is amazing to me. I mean, it really is, and I think you need to be that way in business, right? I think so many people. Like I don't get nervous. Well, I should. That's a lie. I do get nervous, but I try not to freak out, right? Because I'm like, most problems are solvable, and if they're not, what's the worst thing that's going to happen?
A lot of problems will solve themselves.
Yeah, the client's going to fire you, or you're going to fix it, and you're going to be a hero. Those are usually your 2 options, right? So it's like, at the end of the day, and a client, I was talking to someone about this the other day. They're like, well, how do you deal with scope creep, and how do you deal with like keeping clients happy and do all this? There's no one client that I'm scared to lose. I don't want to lose them, but there's no one client that can't leave me and it's not going to affect me financially.
Yeah. Because
if that was the case and I built my business that way, and I've been in situations where we've had that, where one client's attributed for 60% of our income and it just, and they've left and it almost cripples the business. So I've done now where, and believe me, I care about every one of my clients. And the ironic thing is, I mean, most of our clients have been with us for, I mean, I've got some that I've been with for 6 years now. They just don't go away. I mean, our average client's with us 2-3 years, some of them. So it's sometimes having that understanding of the relationship and the boundaries too in business, just like you do with your kids, right? It's the same thing. It's like, well, how do you make it work? We also don't freak out about every little thing. I was at a birthday party this weekend, not for my daughter, but for someone else. And, I sit there and you know, one mom's like, well, the kids haven't eaten, they haven't done this, and she's all worried about her kids that they haven't done this and blah blah. And usually it's the person with one or two kids, and I'm like, it's fine. They'll eat when they eat. They'll get it done when they're having fun. They're not starving. So it's also too, you can't sweat the small stuff. You kind of got it. You got to ride the roller coaster a little bit, you know. But I think both in business and in parenting, and I think that's why you see entrepreneurs like yourself. You know, a lot of times I meet so many entrepreneurs that have 3, 4 kids, just because they understand that ability to kind of strap in and ride the roller coaster, you know. But be aware of what's going on around you still.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It can be a wild ride.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's the point.
Sure.
That's the point. I feel like we could sit here and talk and just shoot the shit
Oh, for sure.
about random shit like this entire time. Talk a little bit about your consulting firm and like what you do in order to help, kind of the processes that you do in order to help businesses build, scale, grow, like you were saying.
Yeah, it's ironic. I started consulting and usually going in businesses, and like I said, it's usually a dissection process, right? So I was coming in, you know, sometimes very short term, looking at, and like I said, most businesses, when I look at marketing, sales, implementation, most businesses, I say, okay, you know, and most businesses say, well, we want to grow, right? Most people come because they want to grow or they want to start a business. Those are the two things. And when you look at a lot of these companies, they're usually good at one of those three areas, right? They're either really good at marketing and getting their name out there and seeing what they're doing. Maybe you know, they're a killer salesman and they're really good at closing, or they've got a really good product or service or software that they're implementing. But very rarely is someone doing all three of those good. So I always look at, first thing is, okay, how do we grow, right? Like where's the pain point of growth? Because sometimes it is marketing, sometimes it is sales. You know, that's the first thing in kind of the lead generation. And then we look at, on the implementation side, though, are you delivering? For me, the most important thing is, are you delivering on what you say? And that's the biggest thing that I look at when we go into a business and we kind of do a health check. You know, we do SWOT analysis and we look at it, and then we, you know, strategize on what they need to do to grow. And I'm kind of like an outsourced COO. So I look at it from the operational side, and that's kind of the role. Like I said, sometimes as little as 90 days, like companies I've been with for 6 years. But I come in and say, okay, how do we fix those three areas and stabilize them? And sometimes it's throttling all three back to make sure that you're able to grow. Because a lot of people are like, well, we got to double down on our marketing. We got to do twice as much on Facebook ads, or twice as much. You know, we got to hire more sales guys and do all this. Sometimes it hasn't been that. Most of the time, though, you believe it or not, when I look at a business, it's on the implementation, customer service side. Because if you deliver on what you say you're going to do, I don't care whether you're selling widgets or you're doing marketing or you're a teacher or whatever it is. If you deliver to the customer, and your customer, it's just like you said with waiting tables. If you get them to laugh, if you get them to fall in love with you, if you get them to understand the process, and they love the product or service that you're giving, and it really works, that's a win. And the problem is, so many people nowadays, it's not hard to be good at marketing. It's really not.
Yeah.
Like when you look at all the tools and resources, it's not hard. Sales is easy. I think if you could, once again, if you're good at marketing, you're good at sales, you find your right target audience, or you could hire some guy, you could hire both. Sales is pretty easy. But delivering on what you say you can do is probably the hardest thing you can do in business. So that's usually what we look to solve. Marketing was usually, in all honesty, the biggest issue for me, and I always had a hard time finding a good marketing company. So I helped a good friend of mine. Her and I sat on a board together, and I helped her start her marketing company. And then as she started to get off the ground, like I helped her close some deals with it. And she's like, well, do you want to partner with me on it? So I partnered with her, Brand Ethos. So I have, you know, a marketing company with Alicia. I partnered with her on that, so that she's the CEO, I'm the COO. So I do have an in-house marketing company, but sometimes it's good to use my company. Sometimes it's good to use something external, but we just more look at the health of a business, and what does it take for you to kind of grow and scale it operationally. And sometimes too, it's not financial. You know, sometimes I've gone into a business, it's been time. I've helped freed up time for CEOs too. I also use that term very loosely, because I think most people are not a CEO. I've got a chapter in my book called that too. You are not the CEO. More likely, you're just the president, or more likely, most people are the vice president of their own company. They just don't realize it. But you know, we look at, you know, where do you need to be? Do we need to save you time? How do we put that structure in? Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's just, hey, let's bring more staff on so that you can do this. We're going to increase the revenue here. You're going to get 8 hours back in your week, and you're going to have, you know, you're going to pay this person to do this or this person to do that. So it varies. The thing I like about it is, like I said, I got clients in the cigar industry. I've got clients in, you know, which I love cigars. You can see I'm smoking one on the show. I've got clients in the education space everywhere. So it's just, it for me, it's about, you know, how do we put structure into your business so you can be successful?
Okay. No, I think that's fantastic. And knowing what I know about business, which is limited in scope comparatively, probably to you, because I've only owned my business for the last year, but I've been like an entrepreneur, solopreneur for the past 6, right? 5, 6. So, but I've had a lot of experience to see other businesses and see what's worked, what doesn't work, and I can tell you from like my perspective in the financial industry, insurance, financial industry within insurance and all that, that structure, service like processes,
Hmm.
systems, all of that is probably the number one leading factor for failure
Yeah.
or stalled growth.
Yep. Yep.
Is,
And I,
is those.
yeah, and you're a fit guy, right? You're in good shape. I tell everybody running a business is like a diet. All the methods work. They all work.
Yeah.
They all work. You just have to do them.
You
You just
have to
have to
do them.
commit to one of them.
It's it's just calories in versus calories out.
Yeah, I mean, but it's just like anything. Does Weight Watchers work? Sure. Does keto work? Sure. Does the high protein diet? Sure. If you do them, if you follow them, if you commit to them, it's the same thing in your business, right? Do these methods, you could, and I've seen, this is the thing that breaks my heart. I've seen so many businesses build a system and not follow it.
Yeah.
And that's the worst. When I come into a business and we put structure and we put a system in it, and they go right back to their old habits, right? Because it's just good. And to your point,
Mhm.
if they don't follow that system, and if you don't put a system in place, you're not going to grow. And the scariest thing is when you see that. It's one thing not knowing. It's another thing when we give it to you and you don't do it. That's heartbreaking, man. Oh, that breaks my heart.
Yeah. So, to be honest, that's a lot of like sales entrepreneurs. Period.
Yeah, because selling is easy. That's what I mean. It's easy to close the deals, right?
Yeah.
And a perfect example of the restaurant, right? How many times did you wait on a table? You had a great table. They loved you. You did good. You did everything, and then all of a sudden the food comes out, and the line cook screwed it up.
Oh yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah.
man, that's the worst. The
It
steak's
is.
overcooked. The French fries are cold. Whatever. Man, that's heartbreaking. Why? Because I just spent the last 20, 30 minutes getting these people to love me,
Just buttering them up.
and then the butter is melted.
Yeah.
you know, it's the worst, right? So that's what I mean. And what happened? And listen, I know it's not your fault. I know you didn't do it, Mike, or I know but it's the worst. That was the worst when it happened. That was the absolute worst.
And it happens a lot of times. That kind of similar situation happens in business. It does.
Yeah, yeah. And you can recover, right? You can recover. I think rapport in the beginning also helps you recover. But if it happens more than once, they're not going to come back.
Yeah.
They're not going to come back.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, what are some systems and processes that you would advise for young, novice business owners that are looking to scale and grow? That could just be like, hey, like these are kind of my top tips to look out for in order operationally.
I mean, I think the first thing to always look at is, if you're burning the candle at both ends, you got to stop and take a step back, right? If you're working 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., that's the first red flag.
Yeah.
It's hard to say any one thing because I think every business is different, right? I will tell you, I think planning your day is important. I think you have to know how to plan your day. I think delegation is key. I constantly look at not what I can do, but what I can't do. And I think for any entrepreneur, you should be looking less at what you can do and look at what you can't do and be offloading as much as you can to other people,
Yeah.
because that's the only true way you grow and scale a business. There's no one captain rowing the boat. You know what I mean? And I think the biggest thing to look at is too many entrepreneurs focus on them being the system or them being the person, or that, especially in consulting, right? Like so many guys want to say, well, I'm the consultant. I'm the person. It's got to be me. I think you got to be looking at how much can you offboard to someone else and how much could you have someone else doing. I have somebody that reads my emails for me, because that's a waste of my time. It's a waste of my time to sit in front of my computer every day and go through emails and delete and respond and do all this. If they're important, they let me know and I reply to them, because it's not important for me to do that, right?
Yeah.
But now, that being said, I'm not a big fan of automation, because I think automation can kill a business sometimes. So you have to be very careful of, are you over automating? I love delegating because the human factor, I think, can catch a lot of things. I'm all for automation, and I love systems. Listen, we use Trello. Trello is one of my favorite tools to use. We use it to communicate with our teams and organize and track business, different things that we do. I think depending on your business, sometimes having a CRM is important. Having an email list is important. I mean, there's certain techniques, but it's hard to say any one thing because I think it varies by business, right? Like I said, it's kind of like that diet, right? You got to look at it. It's like, well, tell me about your business. I don't know. Like, what do you need?
Yeah.
Like, what's your pain points? What are you doing well? What are you not doing well? What makes you happy? What makes you sad? I mean, if you start a business, I think at the end of the day, you should be able to do the things that you enjoy in that business the most and delegate everything else. That's why you start a business, right? Like if you're running your own payroll, there's a problem. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? If you're doing, I mean, there's certain things that I think you should just be offboarding. I mean, I think, and listen, I think everybody should have an accountant. I think you got to get a good accountant to start. I mean, that's I don't know if you know Tyler McBroom. I know you're in the Arte. I mean, that guy is just a genius. I mean, he's helped so many of my clients kind of rectify their business. And obviously I don't get money from him. He doesn't give me anything for referrals. I just think he's really good at what he does. But he's saved some of my clients and bringing him in as an accountant. The money he saved them and the structure he's put into their business, just getting an accountant has sometimes redirected a business in such a massive way. So I think it's just really looking at like the key thing for any business is what should you not be doing, not what you can be doing. And I think too many people look what they can be doing.
Yeah. I'm actually writing down Tyler McBroom's name.
Oh yeah. Oh, you don't know him? Oh, he's an Arte. He's a great guy.
There's a lot of people in Arte that I haven't connected with.
Yeah, I know.
I'm real bad about going on there and connecting. I mean, I've connected with a lot of people, but
yeah,
I could be better.
Yeah, but he's just I mean, and that would be but everybody needs an account. So that's why I said for me it's hard because I truly believe in what I do. Like I'd be lying if I say that like there's like, oh, if you do these 3 things, you're gonna 10x your income. I don't know until I look at your business.
Do you have any kind of like program or like, hey, let's have a coaching or like a consultation call? Let's let me understand, see if I can if it would be a good fit that if anyone wanted to learn more, like kind of follow you.
Yeah, on my site, MikeFicara.com, I do 30-minute consultation calls. So always happy to jump on a call and share. So that's always the first thing that I love to do. And then, like I said, if there's a fit, usually we move to, kind of, I'm big on 90 days. Let's do 90 days. I have a 90-day outsourced COO program where I come and do and analyze your business. And like I said, sometimes it's as simple as like, look, man, here's a plan. I think you can take and run with it, or are we going to do this together? And that's usually the next step. So that's kind of my process that I do. And like I said, it's the thing of it is it's different for everybody. So I'm also very picky about who I work with.
Yeah.
Which is why which is why I do fun things like cigars and education. I mean, those are I just don't have a Scotch company yet. I think that's the only thing I'm missing, that I've hit the business trifecta. We've even got Tony Roma's as one of our clients. I don't know. They're making a comeback here in the US. They just got bought. And they're re-emerging as a franchise. I don't know if you remember Tony Roma's, the ribs place.
I do.
So we're doing a lot of work with them, which is fun because I get to go and sit with their executive chef, and he, we take pictures of the food, but I end up eating half of it. He's like, "Oh, that wasn't ready to eat yet." I'm like, "Oh, my bad."
So it's delicious.
I'll write a testimonial. So
I love it. So I appreciate it. It's been a great conversation. I appreciate you jumping on and just sharing some of your insight and your wisdom when it comes to businesses. And the last question I ask all my guests is, sure, you have an opportunity to sit with, learn from, break bread with, like just kind of spend as much time and really ask the nitty gritty and get in 3 people, anyone in history, living or deceased. Who would those people be and why?
So I enjoy this question for a multitude of reasons because I've had this before, and I think it varies on where my life is at. And for me, it's very personal.
Yeah.
I still have every Tuesday I have lunch with my father. So that's number one. I do that now. He's just been a great mentor to me, and we just talk business and life and everything. So I always go with my father, regardless. I would, the other 2, I think it varies on where I'm at in life right now. In what I want to do and kind of the ways that I want to grow. Let's see, who would the other 2 be? This is a good question. I'm trying to think of who I've said in the past. I've also said, for me, nostalgically, I think I'd love to go back and have another conversation with my grandmother too.
Yeah.
Just because I think no one knows you better than them, and just seeing where I've gone and the I think historical knowledge is so key. Kind of living or deceased. And the third person, and once again, not a political person, I always got a kick out of him because I thought he was funny, and I'd love to just sit down with him, and I thought he was a good leader. I always liked George W. Bush. I know a lot of people didn't like him. Once again, not political, nothing like that. I just always like he just seems like a fun guy to just shoot the shit with.
Actually George W.
Yeah, W. Like what you do? Like would it be like you just feel like you laugh with him and have a good time? I've always wanted to like if I could ever meet a president, he would be the president I'd want to meet.
Yeah.
And sit down with and just have a conversation with, because I thought he, and one of the things I will say about him, and like I said, once again, I know I'm not a political guy, so I don't have a dog in the race, if you will, because I think they're all full of shit. But I do think that he went through he was probably one of the more scrutinized presidents I've seen in my time, and even early on. But But yet he always seemed to have a smile on. And even to this day, I've seen a couple
He
of
did seem very positive.
Yeah, like he just seemed to be like, and listen, maybe he was aloof, maybe ignorance is bliss, but even like his daughter, you see his daughter, and I think his kids have just done some cool stuff, and he just seems like a cool dad and just a neat guy to hang out with. So more as you go through adversity, I'd love to know how he handled that, because he went through not only, I know being the president, I don't care whether you're Democrat or Republican, is probably one of the toughest jobs ever. Yeah. And he went through some really, really tough times with 9/11 and different things. But more importantly, he was also criticized, I think, a lot of the mainstream media. But he kept a smile on it. This is before social media. This is before a lot of the stuff I think a lot of us go through.
Like
So I'd love to learn. Yeah, I'd love to learn how he handled all that. So that's my 3.
Dude, those are great. All 3 of those are great. I love them. So for those of you watching, this has been a fantastic episode with a lot of value. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to share this with somebody else that can get value, that can learn, that can grow, maybe change their perspective. We grow by word of mouth, and we grow by you taking 60 seconds to rate, review, subscribe, and share this content. It means the world to both Mike and I.
Absolutely.
Takes you just a second. So do that. This has been the Be the Difference podcast. I'm your host, Greg Birch. Until next time, we'll see you.